Go a half mile inland and it's sunny and beautiful.
Well, that's good. So that way, it satisfies both sides of your personality, depending on how you're feeling, right? Feeling a little gloomy?
I'm a brooding guy,
Yeah, I know. Trust me, I know.
Is that a llama behind you?
It could be. My kids are always saying to me, like I told them, I just said, guys, it's my son, 15, my daughter, 13. I said, Dad's going to be doing the video thing again. They're like, are you on with that open path guy again?
I love it.
I swear. They're like, but when they see that swag, man, they're going to be like, Dad. That's like what a dad should wear. That's got like a dad bod, but TMI.
Wait, you know what it is? It doesn't enhance my very tiny muscles. It doesn't really show them off like it needs to.
Oh, that's pretty cool, man. So,
yeah, look, I want my CREtech shirt. I'm sure you've got some great swag.
No, we don't have. We've got this kind of swag, which is just full of Don Julio 1942. I'll just let that be known. And then we've got a great backpack. I don't think we have much like merch other than what do you got? Uh-oh. It's show and tell time, people.
Oh yeah, no, I just realized I've always kept my plaques in plastic. I have taken that out of the plastic.
What do you got?
Oh no, it's just another LA Times article about me.
Oh geez. Yeah, just another.
You know what? They keep coming. It's so tough.
I know we're live. Everybody's telling me we're live. I live live. Hey man, congratulations on the raise this week. Boom.
Yeah. Well, it was not exactly what we had planned. It was preempted, and so it's the kind of thing where we've been very blessed and very lucky so far in this process, where a lot of really great investors and strategics have wanted to sort of back the team and back the idea. I guess the right product, the right place, and the right time, right?
Pretty good problem to have, man. Most of us would really like to have that problem out there in the world where people are throwing money at you, not literally, but it feels that way.
Well, listen, I wish it was that way. Look, this is a crazy time for all of us. The last couple of months of you and I putting our heads together and talking to a lot of different industry leaders about what the heck to do in this new normal. It's been pivoting companies. You pivoted your organization as events have changed to virtual. You guys have built out an entire consulting practice, which is remarkable to do it so quickly. Our company has pivoted and completely changed in that, we are now really focused on safety and wellness compared to just, physical security. And so many others in the category have changed too. So it's a big moment in time for PropTech.
Yeah, it's interesting. I remember back in March, it was definitely panic time, and I'm still nervous every day. I wake up, I feel like I got to run another marathon. But I think the rumors and the speculation of our industry's demise were greatly exaggerated and I think unfounded. I think, nobody could have predicted it, but we're probably one of the few sectors, technology, to emerge stronger as a result of this. So it's obviously a testament to what you guys built, that at some point it was going to catch on. And I wish it wasn't a pandemic that really drove the acceleration and adoption of OpenPath, but there you go.
Well, it's kind of crazy. And I put a slide in here. I remember, we started the company in 2016 with this idea that, it was really great to use your mobile phone to unlock the door at the office, right? And then we launched in 18, and everyone was all about, oh, this is PropTech. This is where the future is going. It's convenience. It's security. And then suddenly in 2019, we're about touch, and that's what we had to, sort of touch to unlock, touch to do this. And then 2020 hit with the pandemic, and everything fundamentally changed. It wasn't about touch; it's about touchless, right? And I know you remember these. We went through what I think about 8 or 9 different webinars every single week as the pandemic set in, just talking about this framework. And we came up with this framework day one, and it's amazing how spot on it has been in terms of that phase 1 of just sheltering in place. The phase 2, which we're still in, which is pre-vaccine, which is, everybody sort of figuring out what to do. And then now, thinking about what is it going to be looking like and when is it going to happen that we get to, post-vaccine, but pre-immunity. And then, of course, what the new normal looks like after that. So as you and I discussed, this pendulum that we're swinging back and forth on, right, of everybody, going out, infection rates go up, they come back in and infection rates go down, and we're just going back and forth and back and forth.
Right.
And I think that, this is just remarkably stressful, for all of us. And the numbers prove it out. So this, Michael, this is actually our nationwide tracking of every unlock that happens across our network. And you can see real-time statistics as over the last couple of months, everything went from lockdown to open up, to go back down, to go back up. And this is what we're seeing every single week as the numbers are just crazy, right?
Yeah. Well, listen, let me just give my shout out to James, to you and your team, your entire organization, because you've been incredibly supportive of CREtech. But I think, when I do take a minute, whenever the hell that is, to reflect on what we've all been through over the last couple months, there's a couple people and organizations that emerged and leaned in and stepped in and said, listen, we don't have all the answers, but we're going to try, and we'll be thoughtful, and we'll take the lead, and we might miss, but let's get out in front of this. And I think, absolutely OpenPath was, in my opinion, one of the real leaders that really emerged in the ecosystem as somebody that we could count on when this shit does hit the fan. That we could count on OpenPath and its leadership and its support of the sector. So kudos, man. Happy to be doing this with you again. So let's roll, baby.
Let's roll. Well, so look, a lot of things, we've learned a lot of things over the last couple of months. There's some new facts that have emerged. And so this was published yesterday by the state of California, the Department of Fair Employment and Housing. And it kind of sets the tone. Now, every state's going to be a little bit different, but I figure if what California publishes is worth talking about, I'm sure it's kind of be similar across the US, right? So as an employer and as someone who thinks about the welfare of all of my employees, I worry about how to get people back to work myself, right? So first couple questions. Main employer asked all employees before entering the workplace if they have COVID-19 symptoms. And luckily, the answer is yes. This is something we were worried about in terms of, private health information. What are sort of the puts and takes here? And the reality is, so long as you keep the confidential information and the health information of your employees that you obtain, stored confidentially, you can ask them, right? And then the other things are, can you take their temperature? This was a highly contested topic, and the reality on the ground is that yes, you can take temperature based on the public health guidance that are out there. So that's also really good to know. Buildings can take temperatures, employers can take temperatures. And then actually, can you require people to wear protective equipment? And again, the answer from the government is yes, you can. And then, finally, the other thing is if somebody shows up sick to work or they develop symptoms while they're at work, can you ask them to go home? And the answer is yes, you can. And so to me, these are fundamental decisions that we were, trying to figure out if we could make 3 months ago. And now that we actually have return to work policies in place, we can actually do this stuff. Obviously, check with your individual state. All the disclaimers out there that, the rules might be different wherever you live, but this is at least what the state of California has put in place. So what I wanted to do, Michael, is kind of get you to pause for a minute and sit back and say, look, there's been 4 days right now of, amazing industry discussions across the CREtech platform. What have you heard? What are you seeing? We'll dive into the survey results that we've done. We put a huge survey out between OpenPath and CREtech amongst all the PropTech professionals and folks out there in the real estate world to see how they think about return to work. But I wanted to get your perspective first on the last couple of days and what you're seeing.
Thanks, James. I mean, it's overwhelming, honestly. I mean, I've sat through every session and listening to all the comments and all the feedback. And it's overwhelming because, I think since we've been doing this over the last, 6, 7, 8 years or whatever, since Pierce, my partner, got it all going back in the day, never in my wildest dreams did I think that we would have the CEO of JLL, of Cushman & Wakefield, of Equity Office, of Oxford, COO of Jamestown, on, and and Brendan, and so many great startups that took the state. Never in my wildest dreams, though, did I think that the real estate industry was going to show up as they did. Now, the pandemic, it's unfortunate that the toll that it's taken on so many lives, and I don't obviously diminish that, because I've lost loved ones, people I know very closely that have been affected, and some have lost their lives. But technology in our sector emerges stronger than at any other time since we've been doing this. So for the wrong reasons, but we have to all recognize that the world's watching us now, because it's all about work, and we're at the center of the storm. And I couldn't be more proud of our industry and people like you, James, and OpenPath for leading us forward. And also, I read an article this morning on that Axios and Harris had done a poll, and 75% of these participants in this poll, thousands, said that they trust corporations more than government. I mean, just think about that, right? So they're trusting us. They're looking at us to bring them back to work, to their homes safely. And I feel really good about that. We've met the challenge. To hear, the CEOs talk about reimagining office, to reimagining the tenant experience, how data will play a role in the ecosystem, how safety and wellness and health are all cornerstones of the industry. I mean, these are things that I never, ever would have thought of, that we'd be talking about at this level, at this time. So I'm incredibly excited. I feel very blessed to be able to say, we put this thing together. We went from a physical conference company to a virtual. Did we nail it 100%? No effing way. We got a lot of things we're going to learn and do better, but for the most part, I feel really good that we were able to convene all these thousands of people together over the last 4 days. Started out in Europe and now rolling through the U.S. and there's still. So I feel really good. Exhausted as always. My team kicked ass. Couldn't be more proud. And I'm just, I'm thrilled that we finally got the world's attention. Now we just got to ensure that these are not just talking points, that this is sustainable and it's going to be ongoing. And I think that's where, your presentation is really going to help us understand, all right, how do we make sure that this is meaningful change, that we reinvent the real estate industry for the better, and that for the first time in my 35 years of being in commercial real estate, people matter more than buildings.
Yeah, no, that's actually, you couldn't be more spot on. And maybe we jump into the survey results, because the point you just made really talks about that. One note for everybody watching and listening, OpenPath and CREtech are going to make our survey report available to folks. There'll be a link at the end. And next week, we'll be sending that out to anybody who wants to sort of sign up for it.
Can I make a little bit of money on that? Just a little bit? You give it all away?
This one's going to be
raise $36 million, brother.
It's for the people, Michael. It's for the people.
That's true. Okay.
Well, let's dive into it. Look, so we put this research out. What we did is we asked everybody in the community to give us a couple of answers to really poignant questions. And the first result that we saw that was kind of crazy is that everyone is mostly concerned about their wellness, right? So the number one thing that people are stressed about, the highest source of stress, is the health of myself and my loved ones. Now, that makes sense, even though we've kind of numbed ourselves to hearing the stats every day and getting used to the fact that this disease is prolific and omnipresent. And then when you dive into that a little bit more, you say, okay, well, if we're super stressed about this, how does that now reflect on return to work? And so you look at the survey results, 63% of everyone surveyed said very clearly they're just not comfortable returning to the office. And you sort of add to that the fact that 70% of those people assume that they actually are going to be required to be in the office the majority of the time for their job within the year. So remote work is something that we all expect to be a part of the everyday going to work, like that maybe we're going to work 2 days a week and we're working remote 2 days a week, and maybe we're in a flex space 1 day a week. 70% of people surveyed who are all across different verticals, tenants, landlords, property managers, property owners, developers, facility managers, as well as every kind of employee out there, tell us that they expect within the next year that they're going to need to be back at work. And so if there's all this stress, all this concern about your health and your wellness in the workplace, the next question really is, if we have to get back to work, when do we get back to work? 73% of respondents told us they expect to be back to work within the next 2 to 4 weeks, or they are already back at work. So that means there are a lot of people who are going to their offices now, who are going into the workplace now, or who expect to in the next 2 to 4 weeks. That really surprised me, because our company has still 85, 90% of our employees are still working remote. We're a knowledge worker group, and so we have some essential people, but a lot of folks are expecting the need to go back into the office. And the majority of those folks, 51% of those folks, feel that their office is unprepared for them, right? And so you think about all this discussion, all this talk we've been having about for the last 4 months of getting the built world prepared and ready for a return to the workplace, yet the sentiment amongst the majority of the employees who have to go back is that their business, their company, their building is not ready for them. And so this lends us to, okay, what the hell do we do? Like, what is it that we can do now? And if you look at all the webinars that we ran, all the smart people in the industry we talked to, every property owner, developer, manager, technologist, architect, software vendor, everybody basically had a whole ton of ideas. And so let's look at what they told us, right? The office needs to be reimagined. We totally get that. We need to reshape how we enter it, how we experience it, how much time we spend in it, and what technology we use to interact and interface with it, right? And there's a lot of different capabilities that have to be brought to bear here. What's interesting is that when you ask folks, okay, what technologies are in place now, Touchless was one of the biggest demand drivers for people, right? 25% of the respondents said that they actually have implemented touchless or safety technologies, actually less than 25%. So that's not a big number given the immediacy of this demand, right? And then we asked, well, is there money to pay for this? Is there money in your corporate budget, in your building budget, in your TI budget to pay for it? And the great majority of folks said that there is existing budget, or there's an increase in incremental budget that's been allocated toward it. So the money's there, they just haven't actually been deployed. Or if it's been deployed, it hasn't been communicated out to folks, right? And so when we talked about what are the changes that people want to see in the workplace to feel safe going back, what do you want to have in place? The three top things were a reduced occupancy environment, touchless access control, and hand sanitizer stations. So, let's unpack all of those a little bit, right? Capacity management to some degree allows you to have fewer people around, right? So if you think about reduced occupancy, you're going to have different workers coming in at shifts, so that reduces occupancy. You're going to have technology that you can deploy to limit capacity in a given space or room, even if people are showing up, right? And so there's people counters, video surveillance systems with analytics. There's all kinds of different access technologies, and they all work together. And we named a bunch of vendors here who we integrate with, who we know are doing great things, from Density to VergeSense to Cameo. These folks are all, building systems that monitor and count the number of people in a room or in a space, and then they hand off that information to the access control system, which is OpenPath, and we can actually lock the door if you reach a certain capacity in a room. So imagine the capacity is 20 people. Once you get to 20 people, the people counter from Density or VergeSense sends us a note that says, great, you're at capacity. We lock the door. We don't let the 21st person in. And so that's the kind of technology you can put in place in your buildings right now. We talked about hands-free technology. That's a huge driver for a lot of folks, right? The idea to walk up to a door with your phone in your pocket, simply wave your hand at the door, it unlocks. There's an automatic door opener that, you know, used to be for ADA compliant doors only, and now can be put in place to make sure that it's touchless, germ-free. You don't have to touch anything. Wellness verifications are another way to enforce a clean and sanitary environment. So you can put hand sanitizer stations everywhere, but you want every human to be a good citizen who is doing their best to not come to work sick. So if when you wake up in the morning, you fill out a form that says, I don't have a temperature, I'm not sick, I don't have COVID, then it actually kicks off an enforcement API with OpenPath or with another access control system to allow your credential to work when you show up at work. So if you say you're healthy, your credential works and gets you into the office. If you say you're sick or you don't fill it out, you can't get into the office. And we do the same thing with temperature screenings. So I know this has been a topic that's hotly contested. We just talked about the rules where you can actually test people's temperatures prior to them coming into your building or into your office. Well, now, if you do that in an automated way, if somebody has an elevated temperature, it will actually remove the credential. They'll actually revoke their credentials so that they can't come into the building. Whereas if their temperature is below a certain threshold, it will enable their credentials so they can actually come into the building. Pain points that people have been sharing with us, 45% of the people surveyed says security is their biggest pain point, right? And that's either the building security, right? Or managing requests for temporary access from guests or contractors who are coming in because, you know, they're not working on different shift schedules. They're coming in whenever they show up. And then also the ability to shift work schedules, another big driver for folks who are trying to sort of have a safer workplace. And so shifting hours on the fly, being able to manage your access control system, your door controls, all of the different schedules that you have for your employees via remote cloud-based technology means that the IT systems your company's using and your building's using need to be cloud-based. That's a huge driver for people today. And then finally, there's these workplace experience conversations that we had with all of those architects and consultants, right? About how do you improve the way you interact in a common area? And then also, how do you deal with the amenities, right? And so, Vocon was one of those really exciting architecture firms that put together a really thoughtful back to work package where they talked about how building owners can change up the ground floor to redefine the space, wider stairwells, repurpose basically sort of the mudroom area for drop-offs from food services, obviously touchless access and a host of other things. They talked about tenant corridors being expanded so that you actually can do stuff like, all right, remove a lot of the clutter. People can kind of get by more easily. You have package drop-off areas so that vendors don't have to go up and down in elevators. And then repurposing all of the amenities in the building. We actually have one of our large landlord partners who's deploying our technology along with a tenant amenity app that allows them to issue gym membership reservations. So what you can basically do is if you want to go to the fitness center in the office building, it's now reopened, but you book a membership basically for an hour. And then you or a limited number of people are the only ones allowed in with the mobile access credential for that time that you booked the access. So a reservation system for a conference room, for an amenity like a gym, or for anything else is also super helpful. So those are a whole bunch of the different technologies and capabilities that really sort of floated up from our conversations over the last couple of months and also these survey results. We'll make all these results available, like I said, to Michael's chagrin. Available to everybody.
I'm only kidding.
But let's put it up to
freemium model. Hey, that was fantastic. I appreciate all the heavy lifting as usual. So my question for you, for the audience, is like, so much of the conversations were about big companies, big landlords, big brokerages now, and big tenants talking about reimagining what the work experience is like, right? Do we come to connect, to convene, to interact, and then we go back, and then we sit at home and we do our deep learning and our deep busy work? What does the experience look like when we come back into that office? And if you listen to the biggest, landlords, they're all way out in front, the Brookfields, the RXRs, the Oxfords, the Jamestowns. et cetera, the JLLs, the Cushmans, but they're all talking about it. What can we do to reimagine with the workplace? And what I am so enthused about in your presentation, James, is that all these technologies that you're talking about, OpenPath and your suite of fellow ancillary products that you integrate with, will be things investments that companies will make that'll be lasting within those buildings and those properties. They're not a fad or a trend. These are tools that'll be here for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, hopefully. And you could also just follow the money in our space. I think it was just this week, I just counted up, it was a couple $100 million invested in the real estate tech ecosystem, all in these categories that you're talking about. Oh, yeah. So from your perspective and what you're talking to, when you're talking to your clients, I'm sure you're hearing that these are the tools that'll be lasting, and the investments that they'll make in these buildings as the nature of work changes. What say you?
Well, what say me is that, and you mentioned this when we were talking earlier today, the PropTech investments that are being made today have moved from a nice to have to a must have, right? And so when you consider safety and wellness of people in the workplace, and when you consider the evolution of technology that's happened over the last couple of years, there's this alignment that has finally sort of come in where the thought leaders at large real estate companies, the folks who are on the calls today and on those Zooms, these are the innovation folks, you know, these are the folks who are driving change in these slower moving real estate companies, right? And this is that moment in time where all those folks are realizing, oh gosh, we really do need to do this. And what's really kind of cool is that, at least with a lot of the large portfolios that you've mentioned, there have been some really smart, thoughtful folks working on these kind of initiatives for a while. There were proof of concepts, you know, cool tech buildings deployed, lots of initiatives that have been processed. And now what we're seeing happen across not just the broad real estate portfolios, but also across lots and lots of different tenants, is their PropTech budgets that they had kind of future aligned in 2021 and 22 are all being pulled into 20. And so now there's this race to sort of see how soon can we get it deployed. And we're seeing that in our pipeline. What we're not seeing, however, in these survey results is the practical, you know, actual deployment happening. So we see a lot of planning, a lot of sort of cogs moving, right? But we don't see either the deployments actually happening in the next week, month, or, you know, quarter, and we don't see a communication happening out to the workers that this is really an investment that has been put in place so that it is safe for you to come back. And to me, that's a disconnect, right? There's a lot of activity in space, but there's not necessarily a communication happening with the folks who have to come back to the office.
And when you and I were kibitzing earlier, that's my concern, right? That, you know, how do we accelerate actual deployment and adoption? I mean, it's great that Eric's at Lincoln Property and you know, Jeff's at Mill Creek and Karen at Avalon, and all these great leaders are forcing adoption. But, you know, our quest at CREtech remains the same. How do we make this adoption happen throughout the entire ecosystem for the health and wellness of people that come through these buildings and also the planet? So, I mean, what have you seen from the best practices clients that you've been working with, you know, how they've adopted so aggressively and effectively that you could maybe just share with others to say, here are some steps, here are some practical, you know, to-dos to get some of these tools implemented?
Yeah, so I think it kind of depends on the nature of the landlord. And again, this conversation is focused a little bit more on landlords, right? So if there is a whole lot of feedback from your tenants that they're worried, that they seek guidance, that they want direction, right? When we talked to Hussein, who's the chief operating officer at Sapphire, right? He talked about how they're taking a lean-in leadership position, and they're basically, you know, explaining to their tenants, we've analyzed this, we've thought about it, this is our doctrine and our mission, here's how we're deploying safety capabilities and technologies in our buildings, and we're going. And their tenants were taking a lead from them. I think if you look at some of the other, you know, larger landlords, what they've done is they've been more committee driven, right? Which is, hey, big tenant, massive Fortune 500 company, what's your plan? What's your strategy? How can we make sure that we're meeting your needs? Other big tenant, what do we do to make sure that you're happy and everything? And it's an appropriate way to act, but it might not get things done as quickly. And I think that's the challenge. How do you move through the bureaucracy of a large organization to get change implemented quickly and decisively, while still making sure your LPs know that you're spending their money right, that the asset managers have the right metrics put in place so that the capital budgets are aligned, that the property management teams feel empowered to make decisions rather than sort of get slowed up and, hey, I don't want to spend money because the financial world is sort of coming to the brink and I don't know if I should be deploying capital. And also understanding that your tenants are not at the office right now and they need to come back. And so you have to entice them. You have to sort of show them that you've invested in this stuff. So the over communication that needs to happen to the tenant population is also something that landlords traditionally aren't that good at. Yeah. But I think they're improving quickly at that.
No, you're absolutely right, James. It's the final point that I think that Christian, CEO of JLL, made this morning, which was you have to make it a cultural priority to really emphasize innovation, safety, health, and wellness of the people that come through your buildings and your employees. And so it starts with culture. So you're absolutely right. So let's jump into some of these questions though, right, man? Because there's far smarter people out there than me. So James, what about an autonomous future as an investment opportunity? Is that the big opportunity that we're talking about? Is that the big category in real estate tech, an autonomous building, everything, the way the buildings are operated, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, I don't know if having Skynet run my building is exactly the way I'm going to be comfortable going to the office. I think understanding the concept of presence and knowing who's in the building, when they're in the building, and how the building can better curate the experience of an individual as they walk through and experience that, work in the building, and interact with it. I think that level of intelligence is important. And having a smart building that has Bluetooth sensors, analytics capabilities from, a video surveillance perspective to better sense who's there, connected HVAC systems that understand the air quality and the wellness, windows that are actually responsive to, light changes and temperature changes and, occupancy data. Those are the kind of things that I think are smart. But I don't know beyond that how much more autonomy I want the building to have. I don't know if I want them to charge me on a variable basis based on how many people are in the office or anything like that.
Somebody should be working on that. All right, this is why I'm not a good moderator, because I'm going back and forth to my screens here. And here we got the owner question. Owners are hesitant because they don't see a direct ROI on making some of these investments. I mean, this is what we've been hearing for years. I don't know that we have a simplistic answer to it, but today I would say, it's about health, wellness, safety, getting people back into the office. But how do you measure an ROI, for an OpenPath and some of the other tools, that you're such an advocate for?